Hi, and welcome to all to Cutting Chai by NIFTA. I'm Narendra Kumar, and today we're going to talk to one of the most interesting people to come out of design school NIFTA in the many years. A person known for his whimsical style, his focus on artisanal craft, a story that is unique to India, and also getting to be unique in the world. I would love to introduce to you guys my friend and designer, Suket Dhir. Hi, Suket. Welcome to
Hi,
the chat.
thank you
Namaste.
for having me. Namaste.
Namaste. Great to have you, Suket. Great to have you on the chat. Fantastic. And let me start by talking to you about your first line, really, that said, all things are sacred. What does it mean to you when you say all things are sacred?
Um, Nari, I don't know. I think all of us Indians have experienced this while growing up. I mean, our interaction with our grandparents, the small little things of patta mat todo, paap lagega,
Right.
ye cheeti mat maro,
Ki-
paap lagega. Those little
Kitab pe pair mat do, rakho.
absolutely, those little utterances that leads
Right.
to a larger question of sensitivity in one for everything. Like, for
Right.
example, uh, when we say jiva, ours is a culture where even they've actually said that even a stone has a life, and not in terms of, again, the religious angle, but again, basically ecology has a meaning. Like, you don't break a stone unless it's required.
Right.
That sort of an approach. And when you actually go to the roots of things, it's mostly scientific. And um, uh, and some of us have gotten lucky enough, or fortunate enough to have had parents and influences while growing up who could explain those civilizational values in more scientific and rational manner than with dogma. And once we sort of start understanding those things, then all jiva is sacred, all life is sacred, kind of sort of makes sense, and it kind of becomes obvious as well. So your
Yes.
approach to everything that you do starts coming from that place.
Absolutely. So, to begin with, I see like your parents and your grandparents had an influence in your thinking process kind of stuff. But what was it like growing up? Where did you grow up? Where were you born? Where did you grow up? School? What are the kind of stuff that you did?
Okay, so I grew up in a tiny little town called Banga. Uh, I was there till the age of 9. So basically, my foundation, my formative years were in Banga. Me talking only and only one language, which is Punjabi. I did not know either English or Hindi. My parents moved to Delhi about a year before I was brought here, so I got to spend a whole year with my grandparents. The move happened because of the insurgency, the Khalistani terrorist movement
Khalistan.
that was actually
Right.
happening in Punjab.
Right.
And a lot of us were affected, and I think everything happens for a reason. I mean, and when we sort of moved here, I got a taste of different things. The town called Banga, where I'm from, I was so excited because up until class 4, I could never find that town in my atlases in school, which we used to have.
Yeah.
In class 5, we got the thoda upgraded version of a detailed atlas where Indian map was a little more detailed. And
Right.
for the first time, I actually sort of saw कि यहाँ पे Banga bhi hai, which is like a
Okay.
big deal.
I thought that now that you are a famous son of Banga, people know about the city today because of you. So,
I think the super successful gentleman called Vinny Banga might have a connection. I'm not certain,
or
but there
from
might be a
from
chance.
Hindustan Levers.
I think so. There
I
might
I
be a
know him.
connection
I know
there.
him. I know him. I know
Okay.
him. I know
So
him.
I'm not
So
certain, but there might be
a connection. Okay.
yeah.
Coming back to you, what was your environment at home? I mean, what did your parents do? Your parents worked, or were they farmers? How did they? Are farmers because I assumed Punjab, that's why, not otherwise.
No, it's a close assumption that would have been what my grandfather would have been doing, but fortunately for me, I mean, it's strange how I actually became a designer because it doesn't kind of sort of fit in together. But my grandfather was a cloth merchant, and and my father later became a garment manufacturer, and I tried every trick in the book not to get into
Follow
that
their business.
and but life has its own sort of ways of sort of imposing
driving
on
you. So you studied in Delhi, school in Delhi. How did you land up at NIFT?
So I came to Delhi and I was promptly shipped off to Dehradun to a boarding school because they thought I could use some discipline in life and become a little more independent. And independent I did become. I am a very independent minded person. Although because of my boarding school, I have a yearning or a need to always be surrounded by friends or family. I'm not the happiest person if I'm just sitting alone. Yes. By myself, I do sort of enjoy like holidays every once in a while. I would love to go alone and just sort of chill a couple of days, but that's my threshold. I can't do that for more than 48, maybe 3 days, 48 hours or 3 days.
So how did you get into NIFT? What happened? How did the transition happen?
Okay, so I graduated, I finished my 12th in 1998. And from 98 till 2002, I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life. So I did a year of BCom from distant learning at Delhi University because because I didn't score very well. I just scored about 52% in 12th, and it was
same story here. So same story. Don't worry. I empathize. I was worse than you.
According to mom, मेरे को सारी जिंदगी पोचे मारने थे.
My father told me, become a lift man and you'll be a good lift man. He told me.
So that happened, and I did. Then I went to Delhi University, and I broke all academic records. I didn't feel like giving exams, but mom insisted, "नहीं exam तो देने ही होते हैं." So I got 11% in my first year BCom, and so I did not know what I wanted to do in my life, but I certainly at that point knew what I did not want to do in my life. So मैंने BCom उसी वक्त छोड़ा. Then I did a year of BCA. Then उस time पे वो NIIT और Arena Multimedia, Aptech, ये सारे बड़े in vogue थे.
IT was in vogue.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I chose to join Aptech Arena Multimedia course. And since I was not graduating, it looked like by all the signs that मैं तो graduate करने ही नहीं वाला. So I took the 3-year course of Aptech on a fast track. कि वो 3 साल वाला 1.5 साल में खत्म करूंगा. रोज की 6 घंटे की क्लासेस होंगी, कर लेंगे. And classic me move. 1 साल करने के बाद, I think about 11 months in, and I was like, listen, ये भी e-commerce start हो रहा है, ये तो बिल्कुल मेरे बस की नहीं है, मैं छोड़ रहा हूँ. So that also I did not finish. I had to actually sort of leave after learning multimedia. I was like, this is not happening. Then I think by this time my dad had enough of sponsoring me and listening to every fancy of mine and paying for everything. And he's like, listen, no more pocket money. And again, I have been blessed to have been living with my grandparents and parents at the same time. So Dadi used to take care. But at the same time, no pocket money from dad meant disaster. It did spell disaster. So, you're young, you're just barely 20 years old, and you want pocket money, you want to travel, you want to go to Goa with your friends. And there were two things happening simultaneously. All my friends had already graduated by now. They were almost graduating. Or they were going for their masters. And here I was still absolutely clueless, with my dad saying that bilkul gone case. I joined a call center and I sold
BP. BPO.
Yeah. I sold AT&T wireless phones to the Americans.
Oh, nice. Is
For
that where you learned your English? You said you didn't come from an English background.
No, okay. So what actually happened was, as soon as we moved to Delhi, I was made to repeat a class. I was in class. We shipped to Delhi. I was in class 2, and between the year from Delhi to Dehradun, there were a couple of years I spent in Delhi.
Right.
And those 2 years, I was made to repeat one class, class 2, is
Right.
because I only knew Punjabi. So मैं जब school में गया, मेरी interview हुई, they checked with, I knew all my alphabets, English and all, but I did not know how to speak any language other than Punjabi. And my teacher figured that out, because I think during the interview, they were interviewing parents at that time. Kids को तो कोई interview करता नहीं उस age में.
Right.
I think during the interview, I asked ma'am कि madam मैं bathroom जाना है. In Punjabi. And my dad said कि मेरा वो एक bathroom जोड़ा है cost me 1 year. So he's like, so
people should be careful how many times they want to go to the bathroom.
Absolutely. And where you want to go to the bathroom.
Absolutely.
So after that, I don't remember asking any time to go. I used to just get up and leave. So but again, at that time, there was a social stigma, and parents took it very, very seriously on themselves. वो टूटी फूटी बोलते थे, लेकिन घर पे वो English बोलते थे. But then I was fortunate enough, like a typical Duaba boy from Punjab.
Right.
A typical Duaba Punjabi boy from Banga. At least one person of our family is settled abroad.
Right.
In my case, it was not one, it was 2 from my dad's side and a couple of them from my mom's side, and my grandmom's sisters, and a lot of people were settled abroad. And unka system, as soon as he came to Delhi, when you're in Delhi, you're kind of like the center of the whole universe, but because all your relatives, wherever they might live in the world, whether it's Germany or England or Canada or the US, when they come back to India, they will spend time with you a week or 2, and then they'll go back to the village.
Right.
And Buas, they decided to spend time only in Delhi and not go to Punjab altogether. Maybe go to Punjab probably for a week and then come back and stay with us.
Right.
And my exposure with my young cousins. So my English training happened in Irish accent and Canadian accent.
Okay.
So
you did
so even though my mom and dad were like tutti putti bolte the, lekin I think those 2-3 महीने की जो summer vacations के लिए वो आया करते थे मेरे cousins. That did me a lot of good. And then there was a huge amount of focus in the school on English.
Tell me something. Do you think it is necessary that you are good in English to be a designer?
It helps. See, the thing is, I have a triple whammy kind of sort of an advantage. I because my first 9 years was spent only speaking Punjabi. My Punjabi is very, very fluent and authentic. And so I know that language. And then again, it's a fairly Hindi was also stressed upon, because my dad is very, very, very good at his Hindi. And we used to get the Hindi Punjab Kesari for a long time. At the time of my grandfather, it used to be the Urdu Punjab Kesari, and then later on, it used to be Hindi and Indian Express in English for my dad. And that's how my dad practices English, by reading Indian Express. And so Hindi was another, and English happened by force, because it was, आपको एक class ही fail कर दिया just because you did not know English, is something that was a bit of a stigma for my parents. I mean, I was too young to even realize and feel bad all my life, or feeling insecure about it. But in the end, I do believe that it certainly did help me knowing another language. But yes, of course, there used to be so many times when I used to converse with I've always been interested in discussing philosophy. And every once in a while, whenever I used to discuss things with my cousins, even now when I discuss with them, I have to shift to Hindi or Punjabi, because there are so many nuances.
You think
you're
unable
languages to communicate in English. There are no words, there are no expressions, there are no phrases. They don't exist in English. So
Suket, sorry to interrupt. What I want to find out, What was your first day in college like? Was it a new world? You know, these designers dressed in all these clothes. What did you think of the first day in college?
Okay, so again, because of the call center experience and having been abroad before a couple of times because my family stays there and all of that, I would have had a culture shock coming to NIFT if all of that had not happened. But since
Right.
I had family living abroad and I had all that exposure, and plus those 4 years, which I actually told you that एपटेक हुआ वो 2-3 घंटे ही होता था ना दिन में, और
Right. So
कॉरेस्पॉन्डेंस
you had a
में
lot of time
मैं
to
घर
hang
पे
out.
बैठे फिल्में देखता था. एग्जैक्टली वो 4 साल
Right.
घर पे बैठ के सिर्फ हॉलीवुड की फिल्में देखी हैं. So when I went to New York for the first time, it was in 2016, and I used to actually sort of meet with the people there. They had never believed that it was my first time in New York, because I was very
Because you
well
knew the
versed
city
with the
really well.
jokes and the lingo and the culture, the pop culture. I knew I was very well informed, and so NIFT wasn't, and also again boys boarding school experience. You know, then there are a lot of experiences that happen in a boys boarding school that again NIFT में usually आके culture shock लगता है when you actually sort of see alternative sexuality and all of those things. And then when you're coming from boys boarding school, you've sort of heard stories about other boys and all of those. So you're kind of sort of desensitized to all of those things, and you accept it
as part as you get along.
Absolutely. So it was not. There was no. I don't think there was a point of adjusting to it. I kind of was that. I kind of was that spoiled Punjabi boy,
right?
The only guy in the class who had a car, and I was
older.
Wow,
okay.
I was older. I was older than my batchmates by almost about 5 years, because वो एक class 2 में repeat की थी और 4 साल मौज लेके फिर मैं NIFT में आया था. So all my batchmates were 5 years younger.
Right.
So I was the one when if I used to get bored in class, or if I used to was falling asleep, or I used to just get up and go out with my seniors to go play pool or something like that. I got along better with my seniors than my peers. Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, when you get into school, you come with an ideology. You come with a thought that was built. What did you start with, and did it evolve as you got along towards the end of the course? You know, a lot of what you do is artisanal fabrics and all. So I want to know how that developed. How did your focus on that develop? What was the inspiration behind it?
It changed dramatically, actually. I clearly remember my interview with Mr. Satyapal, because he was the one who was a part of the jury who were interviewing us for the entrances. And I remember seeing about 6 or 7 people leave the interview room crying, literally wailing, like weeping. And you know, it's quite intimidating for the people who are sitting outside waiting for their turn.
Right.
So I waltzed into my interview, and the first person who says something was Satyapal himself. Like, "Aap aa gaye hain." And you know, for me that broke the ice. You know, उन्होंने हिंदी में बोल दिया तो, और मैं comfort zone में चला गया. Immediately मैंने कहा, हाँ जी सर, हम आ गए हैं. So and then I had a big smile on my face. I was already relaxed, and I think it was that one moment of
that changed it for you.
Absolutely. And I knew for a fact that they asked me a couple of questions of fashion designers, and वो जो भी सवाल पूछे मैंने उनको बहुत ही honestly बताया. कहते when he designer, you know, मेरे को उस टाइम पे Calvin Klein के अलावा कुछ पता ही नहीं था, and that also I knew because of those beautiful Calvin Klein ads that
Bruce
used
Weber.
to actually happen. Those, you know, those blue jeans and
Bruce
white
Weber.
t-shirt where nothing between me and my jeans. The kind of
Bruce Weber was the photographer for that.
Absolutely. Exactly. So मेरे को वही एक ब्रांड मालूम था. कहते हैं आप फिर डिजाइन सीखने कैसे आए हो अगर आपको ये सब मालूम ही नहीं है. And I was like, आप सिखाओगे, ये इसीलिए आया हूँ कि सीखना है. And then they asked for the background. I said, well, my grandfather was a cloth merchant. My father, why do you think you'll be good? I told them that my father was into garment manufacturing, and so it kind of sort of, I think, runs in the DNA. It's in my blood. So there's no, and they said, well, your history says otherwise, because last 4 years you've just been quitting on things. You've not been, and I told them that yes, of course I will quit this if I'm not meant for it. But right now,
Right.
I fully believe it in my bones that I was born to do this. And I was right. I was born to do this.
Born to fashion.
I
So
think
what
so.
what kept you in school? So what was that thing that kept you in school?
Um, I think it was just it was very engaging. I mean, you don't really get time, and I used to enjoy every little thing. So, my boarding school experience, like, Nari, everything sort of comes back together. You know how they say life mein jo bhi hota hai sab. So even though I was not good at academia, because I went to boarding school, I'd done sculpting, I'd done sculpture, working with tin and foil. I'd worked with paint. I'd done darkroom for photo development, photography. Uh,
Right.
so all of those extracurriculars, poster making, I mean, all of those things I used to absolutely excel at in my boarding school. In fact, I used to sort of
Right.
do my batchmates' work also. Whereas I was really really bad at sport and academia studies.
Right.
Um, and all of that kind of fell together at the time of my interview and entrance exam for NIFT. वो सारा कुछ,
Right.
it all came together, and then it was. See, the thing is, I used to be good at all of those things, but I never imagined those things as a career choice.
Right.
Now at
So
NIFT, it was just all of those things, but in a much larger, much grander, much more. So मेरे को तो बहुत, I was in my element all through and through. So every little thing, like playing with fabrics or just doing, the elements of design वो exercise होती
right.
है where
Yeah.
you have to just
Yeah.
draw straight lines.
Yeah.
मेरे
Yeah.
को वो बड़ा अच्छा लगता था कि पन्ने पन्ने भरते रहो, सिर्फ सीधी सीधी लाइनें बनाते रहो. So मेरे को वो हर एक छोटी छोटी चीज I used to love about it. So
No,
there was no
so
question of looking at it.
Suket, what comes across when you say this is that you love the small things that went into the making of the whole thing, and
Yes.
individually, like you said, illustration, like you said, fabric, like you said, drawing, live drawing, all of that. So you're saying that you need to have good interest in all of them to be able to bring it all together in your sensibility. So when you went into school, now you are known for your artisanal stuff. How did you get into this artisanal stuff? How did you get into textiles? What is it that drove you through there? Was it something to do with what you said in the beginning? Your all things are sacred. How does that blend into what you choose to do with textiles and all of that kind of stuff?
So it's a gradual movement.
Right.
Here I am making a big statement. Earlier I made a big statement that मेरे को जो मेरे dad करते थे और मेरे garment manufacturing, मेरे को वो करना ही नहीं था life में.
Huh.
And here life has certainly taken me into that direction. And then I graduate from NIFT and get a job with Wrangler.
Right.
And Wrangler is in the process of launching a brand called Hero by Wrangler for Walmarts and all of those. Like वो जो उस टाइम पे एक बड़ा 2005 के आसपास चला था कि big retail is coming to India and we'll need those
big brands, mass brands. Yeah.
mass brands. So every brand was coming up with a baby. Like Lee came with Riders and Hero, Wrangler came with Hero, and every brand was coming with a baby brand for the masses. And I got to become the designer for that brand for the next two and a half, 3 years while I was working there.
Right.
And I think it was at the end of my tenure at Wrangler before I resigned. I was at a barista when I actually sort of bumped into a person who was wearing a T-shirt, jiska graphic, and the T-shirt had been designed by me.
Right.
And I just picked up my coffee. I turned around and I saw that. I'm like, hey, that's one of my T-shirts. I designed it. He said, no, it's Wrangler.
Huh.
And I think it stuck with me. I came back, sat on my table, and I called up Dad. See, this is the Panju boy, privileged Punjabi boy in me. Like, Dad, I think मेरा मन नहीं लग रहा. मेरे को ये नहीं करना अब. मेरे को अपना ही कुछ करना है. And my dad was also just like that. He was like, listen, आजा वापस. No problem. मैं तो कितने सालों से कह रहा हूँ कि तू अपना ही कर. आप जितनी सैलरियां ले रहे हो उतने तो हम अपने यहाँ पे दे देते हैं सैलरियां. So वो वैसी ऐसी बातें होती थी. But I think I quit end of 2007. I quit and I came back to Delhi, and it was another 2 years until I figured out whether I wanted to. So there are 2 more years of sabbatical. So पहले आपको मैंने almost बताया वो 4 साल 98 से 2002 तक. उसके बाद 2008 से 2010 तक. There's another 2.5 years. where I absolutely sort of pondered over whether I wanted to go for another job, whether I wanted to go to Central St. Martin's or abroad
for 2
for
years,
further
you took
studies.
for that? Yeah.
हाँ, क्योंकि further studies के लिए जाना है या job के लिए करूँ या अपना कुछ शुरू करूँ.
Right.
You know, रोज मन बदलता था. You know, as designers, as creators, you know how scatterbrained we can be. Some of us are
Right.
that scatterbrained, and I am one of those people who is superbly organic. And I'll tell you, I had another agenda. During that time, I also met my wife, Svetlana.
Right.
And मेरे पास life में बहुत बड़ा task आ गया था. For me, that was the best person I could ever get in my life. And for my life's agenda at that time became, भाई इसको मत जाने देना, क्योंकि ये चलेगी, इससे better आपकी life में कोई होने नहीं वाला है. So वो 2-2.5 साल was only and only cementing our relationship. I met her and we got married in about a year and a half after we met. Less than a year and a half. We met in March and we got married next year, August. So 1 year and 3 months. And then I used to be at home. Svetlana used to go for work because she was already sort of working. And मैंने बड़ी अच्छी dreams बना ली थी कि, you know, Svetlana, she was a political risk analyst, and I thought she'll get a job with United Nations and she will get these fancy bungalows to stay in all over the world, and I will be a traveling husband. I'll take care of the kids and sit home and chill all my life.
Right. It's a dream job.
It is that, exactly. So, you know, and I don't feel emasculated by all of these things because I really like that idea. There's no harm in, at least for me. I mean, I get to do my thing. I mean, basically, which is just chill. And but I think life had a different plan. Svetlana wanted a break, so I said, "Sure, you take a break." And while she was taking a break, I thought, well, let me start sampling something. By now I had ideas of what I wanted to do, and I instinctively got attracted towards menswear and Indian textiles, is because we craft documentation वगैरह होती है, and you actually and there's a lot of focus and emphasis on Indian textiles. And then when you sort of start getting into it and the nuance of Indian textile, there's a lot more to the narrative that we hear about poor weavers and poor craftsmen. These are not poor weavers and
what I want to ask you, when you talk about this, when you went into weavers and textiles, how did your philosophy work with the idea that you wanted to work with Indian textiles or this kind of stuff? You know, how did not, and plus, you know, people were not looking at Indian textiles so much at that time. It was all westernized clothing and brands and this and that kind of stuff. Other than wedding wear really was what was happening. How did you decide to bring that element of menswear to this kind of Indianness or Indian textile?
So it was very, very interesting how this happened. एक तो नारी instinctive क्या बोलते हैं attraction towards the lifestyle of the weaver itself. Again, because I belong to a tiny little village myself, and I've had that kind of an upbringing. So it was not, mine was a privileged upbringing. I mean, we were the only people in our village who had 3 cars, whereas nobody else in the village had any car. So I'm not saying that privilege nahi tha, and I'm thankful, and I have a huge amount of gratitude. Pura bachpan Gayatri Mantra bolte hue bade hue hain. Isliye because every day we have to thank the energies and the universe and the Almighty ki jo bhi hai, bahut acha mila hai. So, but so एक instant connect होता है with when you actually go with the people and the way you've grown up. You know, there are no pretenses, there are no hidden meanings behind sentences. If you say I want to work with you, there is no element of pretense that oh मेरे को अपना काम तेरे से निकलवाना है. It's a very simple village way of looking at things. There's no twisting happening there. You know, वो simplicity जो life में आती है ना, वो village people में एक different type की होती है. वो दिल्ली वालों में बहुत कम होती है. There are always agendas. There are always what car do you drive. You know what I mean?
Right. But you know, for a lot of people, you know, that doesn't stand true. A lot of people just want to do it. You know, today there is such a surfeit of everybody talking about sustainable, artisanal. I want to be a craftsman. I want to do all of that. What do you tell people like that? How do you think about it?
So my approach is very, see, the very sentence that all jiva is sacred. The whole idea is that my life has been about celebrating what I love doing, not focusing on what I don't want to do. So the whole
Right.
idea of पेड़ बचाओ, पेड़ नहीं काटने नहीं है. मैं अपने बच्चों को सिखा रहा हूँ भैया पेड़ उगाओ. You know, on
Right.
every birthday we'll grow a tree, because see,
Right.
I'm pretty certain that if my son is anything like me or my daughter is anything like me, they will love their stationery.
Right.
So I can't make them feel guilty from this tender age कि वो सारी जिंदगी guilt में ही बड़े हुए कि हम stationery use कर रहे हैं, it is bad for the environment. No, not at all.
Right.
Use what you love, but do it responsibly with awareness.
Right.
And impact, you know, because at the end of the day, we are 7 billion. We're going to be 9 billion very soon.
Right.
आप कब तक कहोगे कि एनवायरनमेंट बचाओ, ये ना करो, वो ना करो. भैया आप स्कूल में ये सिखाओ ना, करना क्या है. ना करना तो सभी बोलते रहते हैं. और हमारे ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स ने हमेशा यही बताया कि करना क्या है. It was always a very, very positive approach to भाई पेड़ उगाओ ना.
So people are putting orders but giving no solutions to people to solve these problems. Basically, what is happening? The people are telling you don't do this, but they're not giving you a solution for it.
And then solutions are also kind of sort of like superimposed. I was having this discussion with a friend of mine. He is in Sweden at the moment.
Right.
And I was at one of the embassy talks last year, and there was this whole talk about child labor and all of those things. And I just told them, you know, and you know, there's all of those norms, जो आपको एक compliances, norms, they're all very standardized again and coming from a Western perspective. I'll give you an example what I mean by this. I work with my weavers. उनके बच्चे हैं, वो स्कूल से वापस आते हैं, वो उनका रूटीन है कि वो शाम को 3-4 घंटे उन्होंने लूम पे बैठ के सीखना है.
Right.
ना वो बाहर से अपने एरी फेरी आइडियाज लेके आते हैं कि चाइल्ड लेबर नहीं करनी है, and it's a classic example of throwing the baby with the bath water.
Right.
The whole culture is misunderstood.
Right.
And instead of controlling the exploitation or the people that are exploiting, instead of cracking down on those, you broad brush the entire tradition of crafts and say that कोई child काम नहीं करेगा.
Right. So how are they going to learn is what you're saying.
अरे वो हजारों सालों की वो ट्रेडिशन है, आप उसी को सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हो. पहले तो आप कहते हो oh my god Indian textile, but then you refuse to recognize where it is coming from. And a familial transition, that knowledge that is transferred is a part of the tradition. And and not everything traditional is regressive. This is a very beautiful tradition. And so that is one example. Another example is again वो वहाँ पे 15 euros per hour की minimum wage होती है, and if they say oh इंडिया में बड़ी unfair है because यहाँ 15 euros नहीं है, यहाँ 15 euros अगले 25 साल तक नहीं होने वाला. But आप वहाँ के हिसाब से यहाँ compare क्यों कर रहे हो? What is the reason?
Right.
And
no, so exactly
what Corona and COVID has taught us, Nari, this is the most amazing thing. And Corona has actually given us insights into things. This is the world's biggest pre-compliant manufacturing industry in the world. सारे के सारे social distancing, work from home practice करते हैं traditionally from thousands of years.
Right.
So सारा weaving, सारी craft घर से होती है.
Right. So it is socially distant for everyone. For the so you know, when you look at this and you look at all the stuff that you have done with this, how did it translate from what you love to the International Wool Secretariat Award?
So there was a whole process. What actually happened was I had this notion. I knew that I did not want to get into mass because of my experience with Wrangler and my whole airy notions about Calvin Klein, because Calvin Klein was very massy in my mind, that, you know, it kind of sort of democratized design.
Right.
But after my experience with Wrangler, I knew that I wanted to sort of focus more on design and design explorations and designing products, which in the longer run will have a bigger impact on the world. Because in my pursuit of innovation, or in my pursuit of making and doing things differently, कुछ ना कुछ अच्छा निकलेगा, which somebody else will get inspired by, and वो impact होगा. उतनी मेरे में थोड़ी सी, I think, एक जिसको बोलते हैं sixth sense था about that. So
you had a vision. You had a vision that it would help someone else would get inspired, but you would still do it so that people could make the most of it.
Absolutely. So my approach was not angsty. My approach was very self-centric.
Right.
What gives me joy? For me, what gave me joy was working with expensive fabrics.
Right.
So all of a sudden वहां से ना फिर वो डेमोक्रेसी निकल जाती है.
Right, exactly.
आप फिर वो
Absolutely.
दूसरे डोमेन में चले जाते हो. अच्छा, now the thing is somehow expensive money and all of these things, again, even us Indians, and especially us the privileged lot, or at least the English speaking city dwelling people, think and look at money and profit and all of these from a very Western perspective. We completely forget that in our culturally, we have always looked at money as Lakshmi and abundance.
Right.
So for us, dhan और धन का मतलब सेम ही है. You know,
Right.
and grain
Food
is and भरे पेट में वो भूखे पेट ना होई भजन गोपाला, you know, all of those things that, you know, you
Right.
need to have a stomach full to make the world a better place. You can't
Right.
do it if you're a have not.
Right.
And so luckily, because of my upbringing, all of those fundas did not affect me. मेरे में वो जो actor जिंदा था, activist मेरा शुरू से ही मरा हुआ है.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
that's a good one.
So
everybody wants to be an actor today, but you wanted to be an activist.
Yeah. So, you know, that whole idea of I believe in action than activism.
Right.
So, and my upbringing has taught me that I did not have a choice. मेरे पास choice भी नहीं थी किसी और direction में जाने की. That was how things were meant to be.
That's how it looked. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when I made my first collection, I knew that I had to use the Indian weaves.
Right.
For first years मैंने बिल्कुल blindly बहुत ही सुंदर जो फैब्रिक मेरे को दिखते थे, मिलते थे, मैं जहाँ पे वीविंग हार्ट्स, अपने कॉटेज एम्पोरियम्स और जहाँ पे भी मिलते हैं, जहाँ से भी मिल सकते हैं, मैं वहाँ से जाके लेता था.
Right.
I think it's about 2014 is when the Woolmark email happened. It came ki we should, I've been sort of, I should send in my entry.
Right. Did you think you were going to
It
win
happened
it?
sometime in October.
Did you think you were going to win it by any chance?
It's a funny story. You have to actually, I'll give you the insight into what actually happened. October में,
Right.
sometime in September, October, मेरे को mail आती है कि आप
Right.
apply करो. मैं उस मेल को इग्नोर कर देता हूँ.
Right.
सितंबर में ही there's a chat happening with my dad and we are discussing कि भाई dad business तो ठीक design का चल नहीं रहा है. So maybe by this December, if things don't improve, I should start looking for a job.
Right.
And he said, sure, that's a good thought. It's a sensible thought. And then I think October is when GQ sends a list of menswear designers to look out for. And my name was on the list.
Right.
And this was one of the few articles that had already been published about me. इससे पहले एक Femina magazine में भी कुछ आया था, and then this happened. And here,
Right.
and all of these are happening because, you know, luckily 4 years, 2011, when I launched my label, my first client happened to be, or at least my first interview meeting happened to be Anita Lal.
Right.
And she is for me a goddess incarnate. She is like
Right.
you know, she's my patron saint for me. I mean,
Right.
she's everything. And she loved my attitude, my approach to design, and she liked what I did, and we resonated on the at least the design philosophy.
Right.
And she gave me an opportunity to stock at Good Earth.
Right.
So वो 4 साल लगातार Good Earth पे बेच के वो GQ ने भी पिक कर लिया, 2-4-5 आर्टिकल भी आने लग गए. People started taking notice. So Good Earth was
Right.
a big massive part of that journey.
Right.
And जब GQ में वो आर्टिकल आया, then my dad said, बेटा ऐसा है कि हमने जो दिसंबर डिसाइड किया वो फाइनेंशियल ईयर एंड तक मार्च तक देख लेते हैं. हाँ.
Right.
मैंने कहा ठीक है जी. And then Professor Bakshi के साथ I was actually sitting and I think end of October, and I told her, ma'am, कोई Woolmark से कोई email आई हुई है that I should apply.
Yeah.
And I knew about Woolmark then because right a year before this, 2013 is when I moved to my studio in Ladossarai where I'm right now.
Right.
And I was talking to another designer friend of mine and he was sort of sending in an entry for Woolmark. तो मैं वहाँ गया, मैं कहा कर क्या रहा है? कहता यार ये एंट्री भेज रहा हूँ. तो कहता, मैं कहा किस की चीज की एंट्री है? कहता वुलमार्क है. मैं कहा वो क्या होता है? कहता वो ये होता है. And he told me about whole Tal Lagerfeld and this is like one of the best awards and like, and I had no clue about it. मैंने कभी सुना भी नहीं था, मेरे को पता भी नहीं था.
Right.
So, and that basically, that's a kind of a hole I'm living. What I'm actually trying to tell you is that I have a habit of living in a hole, and I'm still like
Right.
that.
Right.
And मैंने बड़ा nonchalantly उसको बोला, मैंने कहा यार मेरे को भी जीतना है. Like I didn't say
Right.
कि मेरे को भी participate करना है. मैंने ये बोला, and he was like नहीं ऐसे थोड़ी ना जीत सकते हैं, ये बड़ा मुश्किल होता है, ये होता है. Anyways, वो बात करके मैं भूल गया.
Right.
A year later, I was talking to Professor Bakshi and told him that मैम ये mail आई हुई है, this is for designers, and मैं तो सिर्फ वो शर्टें बना के गुड अर्थ पे भेजता हूँ. मैं डिजाइनर थोड़ी ना हूँ. आई एम जस्ट अ शर्ट मेकर.
Right.
And she was like, listen, one tight slap. You're saying that we didn't teach you as good designers because उन्होंने तो पढ़ाया था कॉलेज में. इनके सामने आप बोल नहीं सकते आप डिजाइनर हो नहीं.
So yeah.
So I
So you
told her,
sent
मैम
your
देखो
entry.
ऐसा है. हाँ जी.
You sent your entry.
So I did send in my entry and I told her, ma'am, that देखो ऐसा है, मैं कोई डिजाइन प्रोसेस तो फॉलो करता नहीं, बिकॉज इसके अंदर तो एंट्री में कॉन्सेप्ट नोट भेजना है, वो भेजना है. आई नीड योर हेल्प, मेरे को थोड़ी हैंड होल्डिंग चाहिए रहेगी, बट मैं भेज देता हूँ,
Yeah.
नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम. आई डिड सेंड इन द एंट्री.
Right.
And financially, I already told you we were going through a bit of a tough time. नहीं था उस टाइम पे सेटल चीजें.
Right.
What happened in January, I got a call from Raymond. They were launching the linen line.
Right.
And they said, Suket, we've heard good things about you. We like the work that you do, and we've seen your stuff, and we would like. And Ekta Rajani ने उनको मेरा नाम recommend किया था. So she's again another magical figure that appeared out of the blue and started another chain.
So you've had good advice and good interventions in your life.
Absolutely. See, I think I am a product of all the beautiful people I have collided with in my life, and it just keeps happening. आगे भी वही होता रहता है. So Raymond का हमने वो show किया. We launched the collection, and that is the money that I used to make my Woolmark collection. I did not have the money to spend to make my Woolmark collection otherwise.
Wow. Okay. Damn good. Okay.
So
wow.
And then I won the regionals. I got another set of money, and I used that money to make my final collection. I won the finals.
So what was the moment? What was the moment when they announced you as the winner? You know, it's a huge award in the design business, menswear, especially large, because there are not anything like this. It is great recognition, and congratulations to you for that.
No, thank you so much.
What did you feel like when they announced you as the winner, and there were all these judges kind of stuff with them?
See, at the risk of sounding cocky, I kind of sort of had a feel about 4 hours before. 4 घंटे पहले मेरे को फील आई थी, उससे पहले नहीं थी.
Right. You saw other people.
Reason है. There is a story behind that also. Why I felt that ये हो गया. It's because there was a question asked and posed to me by Professor Bakshi before we left for Italy for the finals. And again, all the other people I used to practice jury with, they said, why should you win? Why should Suket Dhir win? I never had an answer for that up until 4 hours before the final jury.
The final, okay.
मेरे पास उसका आंसर नहीं था, और वो आंसर भी बिल्कुल जैसे आपके साथ बात कर रहा हूँ फेस टाइम. हाँ जी.
What was your answer?
My answer, okay, I was just like this. I was doing a video chat with another jury member from Australia who was unwell, who could not make it to the jury. So they organized a video jury for all of us. Right. And I was the last participant because बाकी सबकी jury पहले हो चुकी थी.
Right.
वो एक दिन पहले हो चुकी थी. मेरी same day before the final event, 4 घंटे पहले वो jury हो रही थी.
Right.
So during the jury, she ended up asking me a question that I dreaded the most. Why should I win? उन्होंने मेरे से वही पूछ लिया. So, and again, spontaneity, again, Saraswati आपके वो ज़बान पे बैठती है. And I gave a very honest answer. I told them that, listen, I know that my product fits the European market and international markets. I have something new to offer to the world. And I don't have, all of these people have access to the European and the international markets, all my fellow participants. I am the only one who doesn't have that access sitting in India, or the money to, or any of those things. So if my collection is better or equally good as others, I am the most deserving because मेरे को ये वाला access चाहिए जो इनके पास already है.
Right.
So that was my plain and very simple, very, very honest answer. And you know, and it was a very logical answer as well. There was
honest.
Absolutely. And
Right.
and it was,
Go ahead.
in my mind, it was very convincing. मेरे को खुद को
Absolutely.
convincing.
So when it was announced, who was there on the stage? Were there other people who were there?
So my wife and I, we are co-founders of my brand.
Right.
Because when my wife took a sabbatical, and then one thing led to another, and I decided to launch this label. वो घर पे बैठी हुई थी, so I asked her for help.
Right.
Italy जाने से पहले we realized that Svetlana's passport had expired. Like, it was less than 6 months validity, and she has a
Right.
Russian passport, so she could not get a passport fatafat
Made.
immediately. Which meant that I had to take somebody other than Svetlana with me, which was a big shock and a setback for me, because not having your partner along with you, who's been your support system all along for such an important thing, is a big setback.
Right.
But again, like I said, everything happens for a reason. Guess who ended up going with me instead of
Mrs.
Svetlana?
Bakshi.
Yes.
Bakshi.
Huh? Literally, it was a rigged jury. मैं तो jury साथ ले गया.
That's wonderful. That's fantastic. Really nice. So coming back, so once you won the award, designers, when they have an inspiration, so sometimes for me, if I would look at, sometimes it is architecture, sometimes it was an artist, it was a painter who defined the aesthetics or gave direction to my aesthetic. Was there anybody like that to define your aesthetics? What was your inspiration while you were in school?
So that conversation with Professor Bakshi, when she said you have to send in an entry, when I was like, again, still pondering over कि मैं भेजूं भी कि ना भेजूं, am I even a designer or not?
Right.
उसके बाद I told her that मेरे को concept बनाने में आपकी help चाहिए होगी. So we were sitting in Lodi Gardens. It was beautiful weather. October end की बात है. My son Zoravar was sort of playing with Svetlana, वो balloon वगैरह लेके वहाँ पे खेल रहे थे. And Professor Bakshi and I, we were sitting under a tree, and we were just sort of having a conversation about what is going to be my concept and what inspires me. And so she asked me, what inspires you currently? And I looked at Zoravar and I said, like, my life at the moment is all about Zoravar. My son, he was just a year old. She said, what about him? I said, well, it just kind of sort of takes me back to my childhood, because, today, incidentally, we are sitting under a mango tree at the Lodi Gardens. And it just sort of, these are the kind of small little moments that take me back to my village life with my grandfather, with my father, and my upbringing.
True.
And she said, here, you have your concept. Now, just flow with that. And I, at that time, was obsessed with the ikats. And I took it upon myself to actually weave ikat in wool. And I realized later that it had not been even attempted before that. Because wool is extremely tough to tie and dye, and especially the summer weight, cool wool.
Right.
वो hot vat में डालते ही वो खिलड़ जाती है, वो felt बन जाती है.
Right.
So the challenge in front of me was to actually sort of convert and make those summery lightweight wool and also make it in ikat. So again, I made my life hell, absolutely like difficult. कि impossible सा task लेके मैं चल दिया.
Right.
Now, do you remember Raymond? I told you about that had happened just about 6 months before.
Yes.
So this is where Raymond comes in. I asked Raymond for the best and the finest yarn.
They had.
Merino wool ka. They had it. Right. They gave that to me.
Right.
I sent that to my weavers in West Bengal who weave the best malmal. सबसे finest malmal जो weave करते हैं. I asked them to weave me a very fine quality of wool fabric.
Right.
And I took the yarn with me. वो 2 बोरी उठा के खुद अपने हाथों से एयरपोर्ट पे प्लेन में जाके मैं हैदराबाद पहुंच गया with the पोचमपल्ली हैंडलूम पार्क. और in fact, Hyderabad वाली story very interesting है. I made 3 trips to Hyderabad. All the 3 times they said they will not be able to do it.
Right.
They said it is impossible. What you've actually taken up cannot be done. Nobody has used anything other than silk and cotton. So wool, nobody knows how to use. And I left some yarn with them. वो भी खराब हो गया because when they were tying and tying, वो हो गया. So then luckily क्या हुआ in my 3rd trip when they said नहीं हो सकता है, जाते जाते मैंने बोला फिर तो हम हार जाएंगे. कहते कहाँ हारोगे? मैंने कहा वो पाकिस्तान के साथ है कंपटीशन अगले 4 महीने बाद.
Right. So they basically
पाकिस्तान का नाम सुनते ही लोगों में जोश आ रहा था. कहते नहीं है किसी से भी हार सकते हैं, पाकिस्तान से तो नहीं हार सकते.
Right. So, okay, that's a
So
nice story. That's really nice story
exactly.
to be have made it. So tell
So
me something.
yes.
Post all of this, you now sell in different countries across the world, in Australia, in Japan, Europe,
So
kind of stuff. How do you see business?
we have been retailing. We have been retailing in the international market all this while.
Right,
Although I don't think I've done very well with it, because I think I did win the award, but I think as an organization, as a team, we weren't ready at that time, 4 years
right,
back. So
right.
last 4 years in my career have been about building that team that can actually take upon professional collaborations, professional orders, and work professionally with the international teams. So we are
Right.
much better equipped now than I was 4 years back.
Okay, so you need to be equipped to do this. So coming back to another part of this conversation, you know, how do you see the business environment for design in the next few years, post all this COVID and stuff?
I'll say, okay, I have a very personal take on this. Again, like I said, I'll actually tell you about the things that we can do rather than focusing on things that we can't do, is because
Right,
that's how I am wired. um, how I look at things is that for me, it's kind of a said and done thing that a product drives its own market,
right,
especially when you're in a specific specialized zone like I am in.
right,
इतने exclusive zone में, if you're doing a deadly killer, all of these words I can use, like an amazing product,
right.
वो अपनी मार्केट अपना मार्क अपने आप बना लेता है. उसके लिए आपको ना बहुत ज्यादा तो इकोनॉमी अप और डाउन आपको उसकी फिक्र नहीं करनी पड़ती. Because
Right.
what kind of numbers are we talking about? We are not talking about like say a
Huge numbers.
million pieces and all of that.
Right.
And the people that we are targeting will always have money.
To
जितना मर्जी up or down चले जाए, they will always have
So
the
you believe
resources
that the
to spend on
market
that.
will remain or come back to where it is what before COVID, after this also?
See, I think the people that that buy my product are fairly no, their businesses are affected, but I don't think their buying is affected as much as their getting out of the house is affected.
Right.
So
So
वो
they'll
जैसे
still
ही एक बार घर
shop
से
continuously.
हाँ, तो जब वो घर से बाहर निकलना शुरू कर देंगे तो शॉपिंग भी दोबारा ही शुरू कर देंगे. उनको तो ज्यादा आई डोंट थिंक ज्यादा फर्क पड़ना चाहिए. it's
Right. Okay.
it's like traditionally also when you look at the industries, I think luxury is one of those segments that
Will continue to
सबसे
remain.
पहले सबसे पहले बंद भी होती है और सबसे पहले शुरू भी होती है.
Absolutely. Another
So
question. If I
yes.
was to ask you, what advice would you give a young person starting out in their career today?
um okay, so along with the vision, it's very so vision is very important, number one.
Right.
Number two, specifically to wherever you all are from, even if your world, even if you view the world as a global village and there should be no borders and all of that, the uniqueness, the unique thing that one has to offer to the rest of the world is your own individual.
Right. So you maintain your individuality.
You have to 100% maintain your individuality. In my case, my individuality, and I am a product of my civilizational values. So when I
Right.
go to Italy and when I go to Japan, all I have to offer to them, I can't beat them at their game, and
But
neither
you
can
can tell
they
them
beat
your
me at
story.
mine.
You can tell them your story though.
Exactly, they can't beat me at mine, because
Right.
my upbringing is my upbringing. They can't take that away from me. So so that's one thing. Another thing, when you look at the biggest names in the fashion industry, dead or alive, we always focus on the person with the vision. We forget about the geniuses involved in that vision.
Right.
So the thing is, a genius is not made by his own genius. Of course, he has got the product, but
But
their
partners.
marketing person, their production person, their PR person, their whole merchandisers, their whole team is a set of geniuses coming together and making magic happen. The people that
Absolutely.
represent them. So it's actually a team. You should never, ever take so much credit for yourself that you have done so much. You have to
Right.
also ensure that these kind of things, the big stories are never made without teams. So, and that's
Absolutely.
what I've been because I've been working on this for the last 4 years. Before 4 years, I never had to work on that, but last 4 years for me has been
About team building.
Team building. Absolutely.
Right. So finally, now coming to some questions that we received, Suket. There's a gentleman, Sudhir Grover, CEO, RMSC Services. What is the future of high-end sustainable apparel and fabrics in international market in the current period?
Same, it has always been. It'll always be in demand. People will always want to feel special. In our case, people will also want to feel responsible. So their approach will be, again, like you touch upon the context of sustainability. And sustainability, again, it's being used as a guilt-tripping tool these days. Like everybody wants to be sustainable. Everybody wants to join the bandwagon. But the thing is, the true sustainability lies in the holistic picture of things. At the end of the day, even if it's an organic shirt, dyed in organic dyes, made by hand and done, but someone is ordering it in Netherlands, so it is going by FedEx jet airliner and being delivered to their house, not going there pedal. So koi na koi carbon footprint to aa hi jata hai. So the idea is to actually be realistic about things and figure out. I think for me, durability is the key. That is what durability and timelessness is the key to sustainability. कि कितना आप यूज कर सकते हो, कितने सालों तक यूज कर सकते हो, कितने सालों तक चीज रेलेवेंट रहती है, कितनी ओकेजन्स के लिए रेलेवेंट रहती है. So for us, this market will remain untouched. Relatively, these are temporary cyclical things. They've been happening for the history of mankind. They'll continue happening, but we'll bounce back. And we'll bounce back better than before.
Upam, who is a student from NIFT Delhi, said, what's luxury according to you, and why do you consider yourself as your own muse? How does it help to reach wider audience?
Okay, so conflict is the enemy of any creative person, any creative process. So if you want to build a brand, you need to be consistent.
Right.
And when you come from a place like lack of resources like me, you can't actually have a brand building exercise where you actually get a brand consultant and do an exercise of what your market is going to be and what is your customer, and you stick to that for next 10-15 years. And for people like us, the easiest thing to do is find a client who's not going to change, and when they evolve, your product will evolve with them. And for me, that is how it happened. I always make clothes for myself till date.
Right. So what is luxury?
Every collection that I design, even though I used to make plain clothes earlier, now I do prints, but my prints are very much in sync with my philosophy, are in sync with my plain clothes, and they all
merge.
Yes.
Right.
They all
so
flow.
what is luxury to you? What is if you were to define luxury for yourself, what would it mean?
यार इसके लिए ना बड़ी अच्छी चीजें हैं. Like for example, nobody sells a Rolls Royce, a Phantom, saying that it's a luxury car.
Right.
Similarly, I think goes for sustainability. Similarly, I think I just say that if it's a luxury, you don't need to say that it's luxury. It just is.
Right.
And luxury certainly doesn't mean expensive for me.
Right.
Like there can be a lot of things that are very, very expensive, but I will not consider them luxury. Luxury is something which is absolutely contextual. There are certain times like these where for me, going outside and hugging people is a luxury. I can't afford that as well. So time is luxury in certain cases. In the busy rat race, जब आपको एक हफ्ता मिल जाता है just to chill in the mountains, that's a massive luxury. It doesn't really matter if you're actually doing that in a but yes, a certain minimum standard of product delivery or excellence, pursuit of excellence in everything, like even at the cottage or a hut you stay, is it at a certain optimum minimum level? That is also very subjective, but see, if it is a traditional home, is it traditional in the true sense? Is it hygienic? Is it not? Is it clean? Is it not? So all of those things. Yes.
And next question. Are there enough opportunities for design graduates in India? This is from Yashasvi Arya.
100%. Design opportunities will always be there. They were always there. Just brace ourselves. See, the thing is, we always believe, first of all, we need to get out of the mindset of what we believe is the opportunity or what we believe is a job is the only job. Sometimes you get into things that you're not. For example, I gave my Wrangler thing experience.
Right.
It was not the job that I was meant to do, but I consistently stuck to it for 3 years. I can hardly
Right.
say that for young graduates these days. They leave jobs in 2 months.
Right.
So the thing is, you
So,
need to realize that all jobs are the same because you're not the boss. Somebody else is the boss.
right.
So all jobs will always be the same. कहीं पे पैसे ज़्यादा मिलेंगे, कहीं पे काम ज़्यादा अच्छा मिलेगा. So there'll be
So you need
something
a
or the
little
other which will be
vision.
missing.
You need some vision, sustenance, power, perseverance to be able to
Absolutely.
get through something of this kind.
So you need to have the capacity to take risk. Number one, I think I had that because I come from a business family. Maybe
Right.
that's another reason why having those kind of scary discussions with your dad कि हाँ 3 महीने में बंद करते हैं तब तक देखते हैं. It's a very business
Right.
family thing.
Right. Right. So here's another question. If you are not good in stitching, pattern making, can you still be a good designer? This is
No.
Ayushi.
No.
No. So
I
need to be. I agree.
I was so bad. I was so bad at stitching, and my last semester was all about learning to stitch. I was so
Right.
bad. So I worked very hard to teach myself how to stitch, to teach myself how to do pattern making, to be very meticulous. All those things that I was not really good at. I worked very hard to at least tried very hard to become better at those. All the things that I did not try hard to become better at, I miss those things today.
Right.
For example, I used to be amazing at sketching earlier, but then I discovered the computer, and then all of a sudden, in my Wrangler days, I stopped
Sketching.
using my journal, and
Yeah.
today I am getting back to painting and sketching, and it is so liberating to
To be able to do
rediscover those
that.
techniques because
Right.
पिछले 10 साल तो मेरे में कॉन्फिडेंस ही नहीं आया कि मैं स्केच करूं क्योंकि वो आपको यही डर लगता है यार गंदा बन जाएगा तो आप बनाते ही नहीं.
Right. But you have to start
So
somewhere. If you have
100%.
to
So
get it.
for me, lockdown was exactly the moment that I needed in my
Perfect.
life.
So lockdown
There
has
is no
done.
business that has happened in last 6 months. There's no business that has happened in last 6 months. Not at all. But this is the best work I've produced in my entire life.
Congratulations.
So thank you so much.
On that note, I want to ask you something different.
Sure.
What is the do you read obviously a lot? What is your favorite book if you've read?
No.
I mean, which of the book is your favorite book?
Nari, you'll be surprised to know I have been told by a lot of my friends who's the strategic advisors not to say these things out loud, but
I don't read.
I am very well informed. True. That's because I'm a keen observer. I'm pretty certain you are as well because most creatives are usually amazing at observing.
Right.
I was blessed with, say, I have Saraswati's blessings that I have a good understanding of concepts and things and life concepts and philosophies.
Right.
So when I watch movies, I understand what's behind the stories more than what you see
in front. Right.
I don't read as much. The only book I read was right after class 12 was Fountainhead. That's the only book I've read in my entire life.
And Ryan, yes. Great book. What an inspirational book it is.
Absolutely.
What an inspirational novel. So book.
You can't really top that. For me, that is the only book I recommend because that's the only book I've read. But yes,
absolutely.
100%. If you're not a reader, you must watch as many movies as you can. You must watch these period dramas. You must watch these television series. You should not ever believe your parents or your peers who tell you you're wasting your time, you're not doing anything.
Right.
Because no matter what you do, even if you're watching serials, TV series, whatever, you're learning something, whether you realize it or not.
Do you have a favorite song?
So, and my favorite song.
Do you have a favorite song?
I have a few actually. Hypnotize by Notorious. Big, Biggie.
Big, B-I-G.
Smalls.
Big.
Big, yeah.
Okay, got it. So hip
that's
hop.
a good
you
song.
Like hip hop?
Makiba is another very good song that came a couple of years back. Oh, Levi's ki ad mein aaya tha na? Makiba.
Right, I know. That was a good one. Great. So, guys, so we have come to an end of our conversation. Thank you so much, Suket.
Oh, another song which is called that what is it called? Monkey something, no? Monkey dance?
Monkey dance, got it.
जो उसमें वो दाढ़ी भी मेरे जैसी है monkey dance में.
Okay, we are over time, Suket. It is fantastic talking. I know we could talk a lot more, but we have to say bye out here. Lovely talking to you and lovely getting to know a different side of you. Thank you so much. Thank you on behalf of NIFTA.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure and an honor. And I hope I've been able to do justice to the time that you've provided me on your platform.
So in the end, while signing off, I would request all students or people who have joined on to join on the NIFTA platform, sign up to the NIFTA platform to understand and meet a lot more people like Suket on our channels on Cutting Chai, and look forward to a lot more interesting conversation. And we look forward to being in touch with you, Suket. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely. And then don't think about फायदा क्या मिलेगा निफ्टा एल्यूमिनाई एसोसिएशन ज्वाइन करने से. डोंट थिंक अबाउट इट. जो फायदे होते हैं चीजें फायदे के लिए नहीं करते. समटाइम्स यू जस्ट डू दोस थिंग्स and later on they kind of sort of come together. So that's the
all good comes back to you. All
it
good
does,
comes back to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So we'll sign off there. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.